Hello everyone, this is Lucio Constantine. I changed my name from Lucio Maz to Lucio Constantine after um, a citizenship test. Moreover, I have been away from Goodreads, social media, Facebook, and Discord, mostly because I feel like it was taking up most of my life, and I did not want to waste my life while reading books and not doing anything about those reading. Since then, I've been in school and the semester finished, and there's 2 months till the next semester, of which I will be taking 4 classes total. Recently, I read The Art of Living by Thich Nhat Hahn. I've been interested in Thich Nhat Hanh's book for quite some time. It is a wonderful work of Buddhism, of which I am undecided towards Buddhism or Hinduism. Moreover, it has some elements of Eastern philosophy, not pop Eastern philosophy books, but the entertainment media which has adapted it, such as Avatar: The Last Airbender or The Other Avatar by James Cameron. So I recently discovered that there is a word limit on um, Goodreads, so I'd rather not waste my time waiting for them to update Goodreads, which they will never do because they are a corporations. And as Mr. Robot said in Mr. Robot, conglomerates don't have hearts. Anyways, here is a transcript of what I have written down before realizing what I mentioned before. I hope you have a good day and enjoy this video. The Art of Living is a Buddhist philosophy book written by Thich Nhat Hanh in June 6, 2017. What does it mean to be a good person? Should dogma still exist? Is there a self? Are we but atoms in the universe roaming around looking for something to latch onto, never finding anything of use save the darkness of the cosmos, save our own disappointment and other than outer darkness? However, recent studies have shown that even blackness is not completely black. There have been several philosophers, such from the likes of Donald Hoffman in his interview with Lex Friedman, where he discusses that consciousness is an illusion, how if you look at something and you turn away, then it is not there, it has gone from this plane. There are other writers of supernatural horror, like Thomas Ligotti, who wrote in The Conspiracy Against the Race about the crime of being human, which is the illusion of consciousness or the illusion of having a self. There have been other philosophers and scientists who argue that it is a computation, something to be observed, examined, analyzed, and computed into a system. On the other hand, some argue how man knows not of consciousness, nor will ever know, much like how we know not of the ocean or space beyond what has been observed. On the other hand, some argue how it is a fool's errand in our constant striving for consciousness. Sam Harris proposes that even if consciousness is an illusion, there is still something behind the illusion, meaning a substance or a structure or a form of being that can be observed. We, moreover, in a Thomas Nagel sense, through the paper What It's Like to Be a Bat, which Sam Harris references in his video of making sense of consciousness, that there is something there, but we don't know its full content. On page 2 of The Art of Living by Thich Nhat Hahn, it states, quote, spirituality is not religion, it is a path for us to generate happiness, understanding, and love, so we can live deeply each moment of our life. End quote. Page 2. Here, Thich Nhat Hanh states how spirituality is not a religion. Spirituality is the gateway towards happiness, understanding, and love. There are some philosophers who claim that love can save us all, how the answer to the universe is not 42, but love. However, love is a failing compromise. Instead of loving each other for our differences, for what makes us unique, man seeks to divide from the nations one's live in, to the foods one is allowed to eat, to the sex one is allowed to be. However, this let me not be misconstrued with the notions of woke ideology, and there is a definition of woke ideology, of gender affirming beliefs or queer ideology, in which it states that a man can be a woman and a woman can be a man. In politics, one is allowed to hate others based on their political beliefs, as though a person is nothing more than the sum total of their political beliefs, which they found through Reddit or Quora or Twitter. And there are unfortunate people who have been through their services, which is a declining platform, all of it combined. And on the subject of Twitter, it is being better implemented through Elon Musk and worse through the other leader of Twitter. Moreover, on the main point, it is okay for the mass media types CNN, MSNBC, Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, of which Christopher Hitchens favored, and the New York Times to be racist, prejudicial, sexist, and conformist to Republicans and conservatives, as though all Republicans and conservatives are alike and under the same evaluations. All liberals are alike with their blue hair, purple hair, pink hair, thick glasses, pale skin, and men who look like women, women who look like men, despite claiming to hate men entirely. So we can perform generalizations towards each other to keep us safe, to keep us in a group and happy because we have a group. However, once thrown out of the group, they do not care about us. They will criticize you. They will remove your doctoral license, as is the case with Jordan Peterson after he attacked Elliot Page, who was once Ellen Page, simply for having an opinion, because these people cannot handle an opinion but want something that makes them hear pleasant, audible vibrations. Present these people with a follower of Jordan Peterson, a follower of Donald Trump, Alex Jones, or Tucker Carlson and Douglas Murray, and you will see their narcissism spike up. They will spike up higher than the blue pointed hair, which is in the form of men's hair. It works both ways. Republicans do the same thing. Republicans view liberals under the woke progressive types, the Bernie Sanders types, the Hillary Clinton, who is a carbon copy of Bill Clinton, um, woke blue hair, as I mentioned, and I'm sure you understand where I'm going with this. But Republicans do the same thing as the liberals because politics does nothing good to the individual and it has never helped anyone, especially black communities under the form of liberalism at all. In further quotations to be referenced from, there is a quote from Russell Cole who states that I don't think man can love, at least not in the way that he means. Inadequacies of reality always sets in. What this means is that man cannot live love in the ways of which he set out to love someone. For there are moments of when man loves someone and is disappointed, not in the sphere as to how other people is being loved or finds themselves in, but towards something else, or something blocks him from the present moment, and how the things that we once wanted not only controls us in the Fight Club sense through Brad Pitt's quote, the things we own end up owning us after having told this to Edward Norton's character, who lost everything in a burning fire in his apartment, of which Edward Norton quotes, he had everything. Moreover, what we wanted becomes what we once wanted in the sense of Gaiman's The Sandman, where the character quotes he wanted something, but it wasn't completely what he wanted. Like every species, for more quotations to follow, there's one on page 3 which states, like every species on Earth, we are always seeking the ideal conditions that will allow us to live our fullest potential. We want to do more than just survive. We want to live. But what does it mean to be alive? What does it mean to die? What happens when we die? Is there a life after death? Is there reincarnation? Will we see our loved ones again? Do we have a soul that goes to heaven or nirvana or God? These questions are in everyone's hearts. There is a study being done by Jim Tucker, who is a neurobehavioral science under the University of Virginia, and through and a psychiatry professor, where he studies the experiences of children who claim to have experienced or have knowledge of past lives, where they describe in detail with exact perfection of the life they have lived before their present life. It is called Searching for the Science Behind Reincarnation by Rachel Martin. Here is a quote. Enter Jim Tucker. He is a professor of psychiatry and neurobehavioral science of the at the University of Virginia, and he is doing exactly that, testing claims of reincarnation, especially those made by children. End quote. Jim Tucker, as mentioned before, is performing a study on children through the practices of psychiatry and neurobehavioral science at the University of Virginia. He is testing the notions of reincarnation, the claims of having once lived by children. In the study, the conductors found that some children remember the lives of other people very accurately, according to the lives of which they have remembered. There is a question of whether these children are making up these stories. Moreover, reincarnations are notions along Hinduism. In Hinduism, there is an idea of moksha, a chance to stop the cessation of dying and rebirth. Nietzsche proposed a theory of eternal recurrence in not only the work The Gay Signs, but it is sprinkled throughout other works he has done. There is more to living than to live. To just live is banal and boring, and this is what steers people away from reincarnation or wanting to believe in reincarnation. Because if it will not be met with suffering, then it will be met with boredom. Carl Jung said, "Man cannot stand a meaningless life," and no truer words have been spoken since. What this means is under the dilation of how an unexamined life is not worth living. However, I'm sure that there are people who have unexamined lives and are happier than those who have examined lives extensively and beyond necessary capacities. To refer back to Nietzsche, there is a quote from The Gay Signs, aphorism 341, where it states, "The greatest weight. What if some day or night a demon were to steal after you in your loneliest of loneliness and say to you, 'This life, as you have lived, you will live it once more and innumerable times more, and there will be nothing new in it but every pain and every joy and every sigh and everything unaudibly small or great in your life will have returned to you all in the same succession and sequence. Even this spider in this moonlight behind the trees, and even this moment, and I myself, the eternal hourglass of existence is turned upside down again and again, and with it, a speck of dust. Would you not throw yourself down and gnash your teeth and curse the demon who spoke thus?" End quote. The purpose of what some would call a thought experiment is whether the ways of which one would act once confronted with the question of living their life again. Many have not decided on being born, and if one were to choose being born, many would reject life. Under the notions of Christianity and Buddhism, life is self negating due to religion. Emil Saran said in The Trouble with Being Born, "It is not worth the bother of killing yourself, for you can always kill yourself too late." Saran says that there is much use in suicide, for one commits suicide too late. Under the form of Rustin Cole in True Detective, he states that the problem with dying too late is that the damage has already been done, and to imagine dying as a happy child without any abuse from parents or from students or teachers in the sense that they indoctrinate you with what used to be religion to what is now a new religion, gender confirming ideology. What is the difference between what the right used to do in the 50s, prohibiting the development of students learning about apes being close to humans, and from now to all white men are racist, or all people from the 1700s know nothing, or men are women, is mass appeal and conformity and mass consensus. There is no difference with it at all. In the next page, Thich Nhat Hahn says, quote, "The first wrong view we need to liberate ourselves from is the idea that we are a separate self cut off from the world. We have a tendency to think we have a separate self that is born at the moment and must die at another. and that is permanent during the time we are alive. As long as we have this view, we will suffer. We will create suffering for those around us, and we will cause harm to other species and to our precious planet. The second wrong view that many of us hold is a view that we are only this body, and that when we die, we cease to exist. The wrong view binds us to all the ways in which we are interconnected with the world around us and the ways in which we continue after death. The third wrong view that many of us have is the idea that we are looking for, whether it be happiness, heaven, or love, can be found only outside us in a distant future. We may spend our lives chasing after and waiting for these things, not realizing that they can be found within us right in this present moment. The problem of consciousness is a hard one. One views consciousness as something that exists, something like a bat, where man is aware what it is like to be a bat, something similar, or of not knowing what it is like to be a bat, than to know that something is there lurking in the shadows behind our eyes, of which we cannot see behind our own eyes. There are others that claim that even the idea of consciousness is false. Some doctors and writers like Donald Hoffman or Thomas Ligotti, as mentioned before. The third problem of consciousness, after the second, is determining whether it is a good thing to be conscious. The second, that precedes itself, is where exactly consciousness resides, which is the same problem of asking where heaven is, where heaven is exactly, how many layers there are to heaven, how many dimensions there are, and which dimension does God live, which some say 12, some say 10, some say 8. Or in a Swedenborg sense of the layers of heaven, much like in Dante, Inferno, or the Divine Comedy, Al Commedia, where there are multiple layers of hell. These notions of heaven and hell, through literature, philosophy, whether it be Swedenborg's Heaven and Hell or Dante's Divine Comedy or John Milton's Paradise Lost, have been transformed into new forms of the same ilk, much like how religion is just the same thing under the same ilk, under many guises and distractions and terminologies that are not at all necessary. It has been transformed into media and music to books and plays, and one can count the beheaded fingers of countless fingers of music genres and bands who have performed under the notions of Christ and God, even some weary rappers who believe in Christ and spread their message through music, and of which I will call Christ rock. Some scientists argue that one does not nor cannot be aware of consciousness if we are not aware of ourselves. How can we know the object of something like ourselves, yet not know what we are? For there is a correlation of that which we are comparing ourselves to, whether it be an actor, a singer, a play actor, or a model or a writer. Discouraged and hardened characters like Satan in Paradise Lost or the Divine Comedy, or Joe Goldberg in the TV show You, or Dexter Morgan in Dexter, Patrick Bateman in American Psycho, and Travis Bickle in Travis in Taxi Driver are attractive or entertaining to men solely based because of two reasons. They relate to these characters and they are attractive. Would one believe in Brad Pitt's character in Fight Club if he were not attractive or if he looked like Christian Bale in the movie American Psycho, American Hustle. This relates to consciousness because, like the nature of consciousness, we attribute our ideas unto others and grab hold of them. As other Eastern influence shows, like Avatar The Last Airbender, where love is something that must be let go of, when Aang had to let go of Katara in order to master the Avatar state, but refuse power for love, where love is something that must be let go of, not held on to. The problem with religion, according to Alan Watts, is that it holds on instead of letting go. There is a common quip from atheist comedians such as Douglas Stanhope, where he argues why a Christian should cry when a loved one dies when they know that if they were a good person, that they would be in heaven, and that if they were a bad person, they would be in hell. The problem is not the fact that they know they are going to heaven, but rather that they will lose them and never see them or speak to them again. The confrontation of death is man's fate, and there have been countless authors who have written about death, from Edgar Allan Poe to Cormac McCarthy to Dante to Milton to Ovid to Chaucer. All these authors have confronted death through literature so that we can better explain where we will be going when it is where we die, even if it is all illusory. For a dying cancer patient or a terminally ill physically patient would rather hear that they will live for 2 more days than to hear that they will die for 6 more days. And if it's an illusion they want, then that is acceptable as well. To conclude, consciousness is an illusion and a very bad thing to do. To be alive is no great thing, and to be conscious of being alive is even worse. To erect out of consciousness may be illusory as well, for one steps into another form of illusion, an illusion upon illusion upon illusion, where one is constantly striving to break free from the first illusion on which they have set out to break free from. In page 8 of Thich Nhat Hanh's book, The Art of Living, it states, bringing the mind to stillness is easy. You need only to pay attention to one thing. As long as your mind is listening to the rain, it is not thinking about anything else. You don't need to try to still your mind. You need only to relax and to continue listening to the rain. The longer you are able to do so, the more still your mind becomes. End quote. Page 8. To be still is a great difficulty, not just for me, but for everyone else. Akathisia is a condition where people experience difficulty in staying still. According to akathisia, it is generally associated with the use of having taken antipsychotics, but it was already described in Parkinson's disease and other neuropsychiatric disorders. Accordingly, quote, approximately 24 people of, peop- of people 24 people who have schizophrenia and are taking medication for it have chronic akathisia. In one study, akathisia rates were 39% in people taking clozapine and 45% among people taking first generation antipsychotics, FGA. End quote. This comes from akathisia, what it is, symptoms, causes, and treatments, clevelandclinic.org. This study states that 24% of people with schizophrenia and those who take medications along the disorder of schizophrenia have chronic akathisia. In one study, Akathisia rates were 39% in people taking clozapine and 45% among people taking first generation antipsychotics. When one is suffering, one concludes that one suffering is the only one suffering. In an interview with Paul Schrader, who wrote the screenplay for Taxi Driver, recounted the story of a moment when a man confronted Paul Schrader after watching Taxi Driver and asked Paul Schrader, "Who told you about me?" The person who confronted Paul Schrader could be armed, as noted by the writer, and the writer in a hotel room with this man who could be armed asked, who told you about me?" Initially, Paul Schrader questioned whether there were some copyright legal issues. However, it soon came to fruition that the man was referring to the life of Travis Bickle and the life of which the man had asked about the movie. He told Paul Schrader told the man that you may think that what you're going through is solitary instead of uniformitary. However, this happens to everyone else as well. The cause for the lack of stillness in this world is not only drugs, which was ensured to make us feel better, only to have them make us feel worse, or the weight loss program that will guarantee our weight loss only to quit halfway through, or say February at the beginning of every year, where all good New Year's plans go to die, is the inability to sit with oneself, to eat with oneself, rather than to eat with a picture that was sent to people who don't care about us, who don't care how you made the food, where you got the food, where the food was cooked, what mood you were in, or what God given parasite one should avoid when eating the food. To be still is a great challenge, but to call it the greatest challenge of all is like to claim that raising a child is the greatest challenge of all, which is subjective and illusory. For I'm sure that there are other challenges: cancer, wildfire in California, third world poverty, capitalism, firefighters, or jobs in general, or soldiers being sent away from a country who were pulled out for no apparent reason due to an unstable leader that people have elected. I too suffer from the inability to be still, but wouldn't be diagnosed under the conditions mentioned due to being able to control their urges. This brings up another question from Rustin Cole, which is the, the, the illusion of being a self, that we are more than the sum of our urges, or more than a biological puppet, a notion which comes up a lot in Thomas Ligotti's works. Nietzsche, under the form of Zarathustra in the book Thus Spoke Zarathustra, states to a tightrope walker, "What is an ape to a man? A laughing stock." And that is what man will be to end quote. Quote, "What is an ape to a man? A laughing stock, an embarrassment." End quote. Once AI becomes sentient and evil, for there is only one mode of which they can be as such, for man programmed these AI, and man is usually, if not fundamentally, evil. Man will be a laughingstock to AI, as apes were a laughingstock to man, and what man did to apes and Siamese twins is what AI would do to us. AI is no good or useful thing. It is a terrible and frightful reality, an end to reality, as mankind knows the world, what shall remain but dust and ash and despair. Man can overcome his drives in his ways animals can't. Even if man can't overcome the struggle of sex, he can at least be aware that this is illusory too. And like how AI is the end of man, consciousness or the awareness of consciousness could be the end of certain men as well. Man can hold off on food even if he can't decide to hold off on food for 2 seconds instead of 1 or 3 seconds instead of 2 and 1 seconds. This is in response of whether one can control their urges and one is immediately brought into being with the marshmallow test performed on children, where children are given marshmallows to see their impulse control. Moreover, on page 13 of The Art of Living by Thich Nhat Hahn, it states that emptiness does not mean nothingness. Page 13, end quote. What is emptiness? What is nothingness? In science, in the mode of Lawrence Krauss, nothingness is not nothing. There exists dark matter. How much dark matter is in the universe? Quote, together, dark matter and dark energy make up 95% of the universe. That only leaves a small 5% for all the matter and energy we know and understand. Dark matter, NASA space, place, NASA space place, NASA science for kids, which is the source. Together, dark matter and energy make up 95 of the percent of the universe. This leads to only 5% of matter and energy for us to understand or at least observe. What is constant in academia or in the world at large is how much man does not know much about himself nor the world around us. In earlier times, there was the belief that the world was flat. Now, no more. Now, most people believe in the opposite. Who is correct? Well, the question is not of asking whether flat Earth or an oblique sphere view of the world is correct, but the question of politics. Who controls information and what makes information correct? What is truth? The liberals want to control information. The liberals do nothing good for or useful to society, but laugh at, ban, throw out like an unwanted wet towel. The right wants to control and feed God and Jesus in the school, whereas the left in the school to the minds of children, whereas the left want to tell their children everyone is gay and you should change your gender. The Muslims want people to believe in Muhammad and erase the part in the Quran where Prophet Muhammad married a 6 year old, but at least he had the decency to wait until she was 9 years old. Could this survive anywhere else but the desert? And say, but you don't have an alternative, as if under the same argument, black people could under this argument accept the standards of the white race just because there is no alternative. What does that say about your religion, where suffering and evil and pedophilia doesn't have to occur in the first place, where it is a precondition? In the wake of COVID, the liberals was in charge. The liberals decided who talked about what and who said what. Once they see Republicans in Congress, in Senate, in the House, they say automatically Republicans are overtaking society. Whenever a bad political event occurs, a group blames another person. When 9/11 happened, the West blamed the East. When the attack in the Capitol occurred on January 6, 2021, the liberals claimed that Republicans are to blame for all the wrong in the world. And before they had January 6th, they had Hillary Clinton, a carbon copy of Bill Clinton, and called Republicans a basket of deplorable. To what line do you separate people who are inclusive to exclusive? The problem is the left or the reader wants to hear the progressive left or the radical left. The people proclaim uniformity, inclusion, honesty, transparency, but the minute one pulls the plug, in the slightest way possible, even for a small minuscule of their ideology. They will not only be kicked at, but yelled at, kicked out, yelled at, thrown out, but canceled. There is a difference between the usefulness of transparency, between the uni- between the usefulness of transparency and the act of which it may occur of killing 20 people, but this does not mean that the act of killing 20 people does not go away simply due to the fact that you were transparent and charismatic about doing it. Forgiveness is not up to man, granted, for man knows not himself. Forgiveness is up to God, and the reader of this article can call God whatever the reader wants. Quote, bad, unquote, people deserve justice, fairness, and a right to a fair trial, no matter how many good people individuals have swept away from this realm. Even if one is a racist, people deserve a fair trial to their crime. Moreover, to stay on the topic, whoever should hold power to transmit information unto others is not the government, not the press, but the people. In the spirit of information, the main complaint people make in regard to this is information X is wrong and could harm someone. I myself do not agree with free will, but if one agrees with free will, then one should allow themselves to share information. Truth is not bound by consensus. Talking about the problem does not mean that one agrees with the problem. Being around a situation does not mean you support the situation. No one will believe this until they themselves are found in this situation. Quote, if we have lost someone who is very close to us and we are grieving, the concentrations on emptiness and singleness help us look deeply and see the ways in which they still continue. Our loved one is still alive and within us and around us. They are very real. We have not lost them. It is possible to still recognize them in a different form or in even more beautiful forms than in the past. In the light of emptiness and interbeing, we know we know they have not died or disappeared. They continue in their actions and in us. We can still talk to them. We can say something like, I know you are there. I'm breathing for you. I'm smiling for you. I'm enjoying looking around with your eyes. I enjoy life with you. I know that you are still there very close to me, and that you continue in me. End quote. Page 30. At the End of the Road, written by Cormac McCarthy in 2006, where the man dies after being sick from coughing, traveling along the beach. The journey they had set their gaze upon speaks to the boy, the man's child, whom the man called his warrant, the last warrant of God. The man and the boy have their last conversation. Do you remember the boy, Papa? Yes, I remember him. Do you think he's all right, that little boy? Oh, yes, I think he's all right. Do you think he was lost? No, I don't think he was lost. I'm scared that he was lost. I think he was right. I think he is all right. But who will find him if he is lost? Who will find the little boy? Goodness will find the little boy. It always has, it always had, it always will. It will again. Page 280 through 281, The Road, Cormac McCarthy, end quote. Here in this quote, McCarthy, contrary to his initial statements earlier, with early works such as Child of God, or more famously, Blood Murdering, the author expresses his message, the tribulation of mankind, the will to keep going, to survive beyond all knowing, to look for meaning, is the goal and purpose of mankind, and mankind's purpose is to suffer, so that, so that one may overcome their suffering, to suffer once more and overcome suffering innumerable times more. Religion is anti life, it seeks another life. unable to be content in this present life. What was the main point of this present life if one were to be sent somewhere else, unless one were to assume that this life is a heaven or a hell? And it was Milton who said in Paradise Lost that the mind is its own place, and in itself can make a heaven of hell, a hell of heaven. Similarly, Shakespeare writes in Hamlet, there is nothing neither good or bad, but thinking makes it so. Makes it so. I will leave you with one last quote from Guru Batik, a character in Avatar The Last Airbender, who says, you have indeed felt a great loss, but love is a form of energy, and it swirls all around us. The air Normans, love for you, have not left this world. It is still inside your heart. It is reborn in the form of new love. Let the plane flow away. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and I apologize for the transcript. I will be making more videos and series soon for time to come. I appreciate you all being here, and thank you for watching. Goodbye.